welcome. If you're watching, we still got about like 13 or 14 minutes until the meeting starts. But I've had a hell of a time like figuring out the streaming thing. So I am just kind of getting on early. We'll have Kent on pretty close to like 3:15ish, and yeah, you'll kind of see behind the scenes, like how we actually like get started, do everything. I'm just going to be kind of getting things ready right now, so I guess I would appreciate it if you could let me know if the sound is about right. It looks like maybe I'm kind of peaking a little bit, so let's see. Let me reduce this a little bit. I'll have to depend on you once Kent comes in to see how all this sounds. So I think it looks like we're peaking at about a good level right now. So there we go. Yeah. So I think to get started, we're gonna have the chat open. I'm not super great at actually like kind of doing the interview thing and managing chat at the same time. However, if you have any burning questions, I would put them in there now, and I can try to incorporate those into my thinking as we talk. Or you can stick around, and we'll try to tackle any questions that might come up at the end of this. So yeah, that's that. I'm gonna keep keep working here, and we'll see how this goes. I'm gonna kind of get a tweet set up and get the Zoom meeting set up, and hopefully everything will work without too much difficulty. If you're hanging out, just give me a thumbs up or a high five in chat that things are looking good, coming across well. I think that this should be coming through at up to 1080p. Who knows? Everything will work. Oh, hey, what's up, Kent? If you're hanging out, just give me a thumbs up or a high five in chat that things are looking good. What's up, dude?
Dude, hey. What is up? Hey. I'm watching the live stream right now. I'm like tripping. What's going on?
so many me's.
Yeah, am I live right now?
Yeah, I think.
What's up, folks? Nice.
Oh, there you are.
My ding dong on the other thing. Sweet. Good, dude. Hi, everyone.
Oh, this is exciting. You know, it's like I haven't been doing much of this, but it's interesting. It's quite an experiment.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I'm people are going to be blown away. It's so great. Anyway, so yeah, things are good.
Good.
Now my wife is trying to keep the kids quiet upstairs, so she's the real hero right now. It's not easy to do that for us. So anyway,
I know.
Yeah, things are good.
We have, it looks like you guys have carpet, but like we have like wood floors, and like anytime someone like steps or like says anything or plays a YouTube video or like whatever, it's just goes all the way through the house and like up through the walls. So
yeah, we do have wood floor upstairs, but directly above me is my my son's room, and he's got carpet. But if they like jump off the bed or something, then it's like kaplunk like, everywhere. Yeah, nice. And they don't need wood floors to be noisy. If they want to pretend to be dinosaurs or something, then all hope is lost at me recording videos.
You're done for the day. I know. I remember having there was this bird that sat outside of our house, and I don't remember what time of day it was, but like whatever time of day I had to record videos, that was the time of day that this bird just came out and started singing its song. It's just brutal. I remember like trying to time it, like trying to predict when it was, and I would try to like say something real quick and then like to get it in before it did its next cadence. But
Oh, that's no bueno, man.
no bueno. No, I need like a solitary confinement. Like just just a room of like mass loaded vinyl and like cushions or something like that.
Yeah,
And
I've been thinking it'd be, there's this YouTuber that like makes all kinds of really weird things, and one of the things that he showed off was his bunker that he made, where he records
okay.
lots of his videos and stuff. And I showed that to my kids, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, we've got to get a bunker. That would be so awesome." Like, yeah, that would be for my office. That's for me, not for you kids.
Yeah, it will be cool when I have a bunker. You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
I know I have to do that with my kids a lot too. Like, hey, this is my Xbox. I may let you play it, but this is Dad's Xbox.
Yeah.
Let's just be
Oh,
clear
that's
about that.
good.
Okay, cool. I think we're doing good. I can't tell. No one's complained about audio or video yet. I don't know how many people are even watching live, but let's kind of like dive into it. I figure let's get the nitty gritty stuff out of the way first. I'm gonna hit record on this, and then also if you wouldn't mind getting a recording going.
Oh, locally, sure.
Locally,
I can do that.
You'll sound super pristine.
Yeah. You want just audio or a video too?
Oh, audio's fine. Audio's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll record the Zoom stuff, but audio's fine for the rest of it.
Boom. Audio is going. Should I snap? No, just kidding.
And then
that's inside joke.
so many inside jokes and secrets, like
oh man, it will all be known. Well, maybe not all of it, but much of it will be known at the end of this month.
Maybe we can do like a behind the scenes episode or something like that someday. Awesome. Audio sounds great. Thank you, Steven. Cool. And can you hear me all right, Kent?
Dude, you sound buttery smooth.
Awesome. I've been
good.
having this trouble recently where it's like when I try to use this microphone on Zoom, it'll like double up and it's kind of like echoey, and it's a kind of a big pain in the butt. But I think I finally figured out all of my AV, so I can talk to you through the microphone and then also send that out to the world.
Yeah, excellent. That's good. After over a decade of work. It's amazing how much work it takes to get these things set up.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's crazy. Like if you want to be like a content creator these days of any shade, like you have to you're basically a broadcaster, right? Like you have to learn all this stuff. You have to learn how to do like marketing and like art. I guess you can hire some stuff, like some of the like stuff out on like, I don't know, Fiverr, or like actually like hire people to do some of the more art stuff, but it's just nutty.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
It's
not that's why I have Egghead to do tons of stuff for me.
It's not just writing blog posts and being done with it, is it?
Yeah, no, there's a lot more. If you want people to hear about it, then yeah.
Cool. Let's see. So I before we dive in, I just want to find out what are some of the high level things that you want to make sure that we talk about today and actually get into the episode.
So yeah, let's see. I should pull up the Epic React right now, just so I can have that as a reference material. But pretty much, like, I'd love to talk about the how this is different from anything else that most people have probably done. Like the workshop focus, and also like the fact that we get the best of both worlds from isolated examples. Like we learn things in isolation and then we apply them in in a practical setting, which is not something like normally you have one or the other, not both. And so I'm excited about that. Yeah, let's see. Oh, like I'd love to talk about clubs, formerly cohorts, but now it's learning clubs.
Yeah,
that would be awesome. Let's see.
And is that
There's
happening
some
through?
surprise things that we don't need to talk about.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, and I think that there's plenty of things that you've probably already talked about that we can address and that won't kind of make ruin a surprise for anybody.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things I'd love to talk about, like kind of like how you were saying how it was different. I'd love to talk about like the actual like, the thing that you built around it, like because you have like a whole like it's not just like off the shelf like course thing, right? Like it's a like an Epic React. It's like its whole like its own whole thing. So
Yeah.
I'd love to talk about the process of kind of like building that and kind of like the benefits that you're hoping to see from that. Talk about learning clubs, like you said, through Discord, and
Oh yeah, and like the fact that I've been working on this material for like 4 years. Like
yeah,
this stuff is um based on workshops that I've given to thousands of developers, like
yeah,
live, like in person. Maybe not thousands, but definitely hundreds of developers. So yeah, that would be something cool to
yeah,
talk about too. Is like where this material came from,
yeah,
and yeah,
yeah. I think that'll be important. I'd love to talk about kind of like how, yeah, like how it's different from other material, but also how it's different from the material that you've already put out there.
yeah,
Um,
that too.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I think that'll be interesting. Let's see. I think that's good. Are you comfortable, like, since I mean, I guess a handful of people who are like watching this live will kind of like hear about the like our podcast thing. Um,
Yeah,
can we talk about that
that
part?
uh that's like part of the
Oh, it's
surprise.
part of the surprise. Okay, okay, yeah. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna. I'm not gonna. I did just mention it. Sorry, I should have been a little bit more veiled.
No. Yeah, it's okay. It's not a big deal.
Okay. No, we don't have to. We don't have to talk about it. And then I think maybe if are there any modules that you're like just super just amped on that you'd like to just kind of like give a little bit of a prelude to?
Mm, all of them, man. No, like uh I don't know, like all of the actual, like, let's build a React app now that we know all that stuff. That's
Okay.
like four workshops, but that just is so good. I love it. I've been using that content to answer so many questions from
Okay.
people.
Cool.
Like, oh,
Cool.
go see what I did here.
Yeah.
Like it's got so much stuff in it.
Yeah. 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 I think. Okay. Cool. Yeah. I think that'll be good. We'll just get to chatting. Like.
Oh, one other thing. So I don't know or make decisions on any pricing stuff. Like people are going to ask about price.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Of
And
course.
when this is released, then the price will probably be known by then, I think,
Hmm.
depending on when we end up releasing it. So, um, yeah, like, so you can ask me about it, but all I'll be able to say is I don't make those decisions. And I don't know, but I can tell you that it will be two things: worth it and on a huge discount when we launch. So don't
Okay.
miss
Cool.
it.
Cool. 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 Awesome. I think that'll be a good thing to probably talk about at the end. Is just kind of like how people
Yeah,
get
yeah.
into
People
it.
will absolutely ask about like price, and so we may as well bring it up.
Yeah.
But I don't have too much insight on it.
Okay. Cool. 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 Yeah. I think that's probably worth bringing up. Um, is it worth bringing up kind of like how it maybe not the price, but kind of the structure in which like people will be like buying it?
Yeah, I some of that's hazy for me, so I'm
Okay.
not totally sure
Okay.
on how that. But I can mention that. Like I don't mind saying it's hazy.
Okay. Cool. 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 Awesome. Awesome. I love it. Okay. Cool. Let's just get started. Any questions
Right.
for me before we do it?
No, let's rock, man.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. In 3, 2, 1. Kent, welcome back to React Podcast.
Oh my goodness, Michael, thank you so much for having me back. I love it just chatting with you. We've talked a lot in these last like month and a half.
We have some secrets, but I think they're going to be revealed, and it's going to be fun, and I'm really excited for people to find these little Easter eggs. Um, how have you been? It's been probably like I don't know, maybe a year since we talked. I can't even remember what we talked about last. Maybe
Yeah, I don't,
hooks.
maybe. Like, was it React Rally? Was that the last time we did an episode together? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
I think so. I think maybe we were talking about, okay, if I remember correctly, it was like we were talking about hooks, and like your kind of like guiding principle at the time was like, hey, don't go like rewrite your app in hooks yet. Like don't believe any of the articles that are going to come out about like these are the like the best practices in hooks, because like nobody knows. So it must have been like
Yeah,
a year and a half ago or so, because we've had hooks for like 2 years now, right?
yeah, for real. It's been like it's kind of weird. It's like with my marriage, I'm like, I can't remember life without you. But I know I haven't had my whole life with you. So I like,
There was a
yeah,
time.
there was a time when we used to not have hooks, and yeah, so it's been a while.
Yeah. It's been a minute. Um, and so now I feel like maybe that advice has probably had its moment, and we're actually getting to a point where there are some pretty good, strongly established hooks practices. And even though the docs don't reflect that yet, still showing classes and whatnot, that the world has kind of like moved on and is using hooks and like has a pretty good understanding of them and whatnot. Um,
Hmm.
so I'm excited to dive into a lot of what you've learned since the last time. But first, kind of like in all of that, I just want to start talking about your course. Like you have now, you're launching. I think probably by the time this goes live, you're launching just this mega React course, and it's just and I want to hear all about it. So tell me a little bit, like the high level pitch of like what this is, and we're going to talk about like what it is to you, what it's going to mean to people, all that kind of stuff. But tell me about Epic React. Like, what is it?
Oh, so Epic React is my biggest effort yet at trying to make the world a better place through educating people. That's like my entire goal of everything that I do is um, how can I make the world a better place for me, for my wife, for my kids, and I do that best with software. And I've learned that I'm really good at teaching other people how to write good software, high quality software. And so the best way that I can make the world a better place is by making just really good instructional material and scale way beyond myself. So
Hmm.
I've given a lot of workshops to a lot of people, but I only scale so much. And so Epic React is basically all of the knowledge that I've accumulated and been able to distill into a teaching form and scaled it beyond myself. So recorded it complete with all the exercises and everything. Um, and created it in a way that's very self-paced, so people actually like, it's not just a collection of videos, but it's actually something that you'll learn this stuff. Yeah, just so much of my life has been dedicated to how can I take the knowledge that I have and transfer it into other people's brains, and that's what Epic React is for.
Nice. Well, I know that a lot of people might not know. I mean, a lot of people know that you've been putting out content. They might know you from, Beginner's Guide to React, or some of your, suspense course that came out last year. But they might not know that like you're doing, workshops like all the time. You're constantly helping companies and people kind of develop in React. And it seems like through that, you've probably like learned a lot through like kind of seeing people's like real world problems and like the things that they're trying to solve with React. What has been kind of like some of the most surprising things that you've learned as you've been like kind of like boots on the ground with a lot of people, kind of like working in their apps, working and like training their companies, etc.
Yeah, so like you're right. It's interesting. When I went full-time teacher, I was worried that it would mean that I no longer get exposure to big problems,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because now I'm just working on little demo apps, little education apps, whatever. But that turned out to not be at all what happened. What actually happened is I get more people asking me the hard questions that they face in their apps. And so I actually get more exposure to the hardest problems, which has kind of been an interesting thing. And so the stuff that I see in people's code, or like the biggest surprises to me, I guess, um, is that honestly, the biggest surprise is that I see the same things over and over again. Um, and this is where my blog posts come from and everything. It's like when I see the same thing a couple of times, I'm like, okay, I've absolutely got to write a blog post about this, because and unfortunately not everybody reads my blog post. So I still see those things, but now I can at least link them to the blog post instead of have to answer it all again. But yeah, like stuff. There's all the testing side of stuff that I'm pretty well known for, and testing implementation details and stuff. I see that all the time. And then there's the hooks side of things, where people ignore the ESLint plugin because they say, well, no, I don't want this to rerun, or I just want this to run on mount. And like those are really common attitudes, and mostly those are common attitudes from people who are experienced React developers who've been doing classes, and they're thinking about life cycles, and now they're trying to transition that knowledge over to hooks, where there's a little bit of unlearning that needs to take place there.
Sure.
At least when you're thinking about things in the context of a hook. So yeah, like that's a really common thing, like messing up use effect, over applying use callback and use memo. Like I could just look at my blog and be like, yep, I remember like the number of questions that were asked that like caused me to write this blog post. So yeah, it's been a really interesting experience seeing problems repeated, and especially as I go and teach these workshops. What's really cool about it is literally every time that I teach the workshop, as I'm preparing for it, I'm like, oh yeah, there was that thing that was confusing for them. So I'm like reworking the whole thing every time. So like people say, oh, you just make the workshop once, and now all of a sudden you just deliver it 100 times and like you're a millionaire. But no, every single time I'm giving a brand new workshop because I'm like solidifying this workshop material. Yeah, so it's anyway. It's been interesting.
Yeah, so it's been, years of you actually educating and training people directly with React. And I'm curious, why now? Right? Like, so you have you've been doing all this kind of stuff, you've been training, you have, a couple of products already, that people can learn React from you in certain ways. But I'm kind of curious, like, why is now the best time for Epic React? And also, like, how is it different from some of the other things that you've done? How have you learned from kind of all of these experiences you've had training to, like, bring this like new Epic React thing to life?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So like, I have the beginner's guide to React on Egghead. I have advanced React patterns on Egghead. I have refactoring to hooks on Egghead. So I could just like make a website that's like, all right, take this course and then take this course and then take this course and then whatever. So yeah, the reason now is the time is because I feel like now should have been like years ago. The cool thing about Epic React is just like with testing JavaScript, I'm planning on keeping it fresh and updated over the course of the years, as long as that's useful, and as long as I'm into it, which is probably for a long time. So the benefit of doing Epic React on top of like, or instead of just making a website that says go take these courses, is because it really brings everything together in a nice way to weave people through in a process that I think will be more effective for their learning their learning process. And also Epic React is like vastly different from any other type of recorded instructional material I've ever made. It might be like a little bit more similar to front-end masters in some ways, because it is like more of a workshop based type thing, but even then it's still quite a bit different. One of the things that I really try to do as part of effective teaching is to make sure that I'm not wasting people's time. I don't mind taking people's time, but I want to take that and turn it into something and give it back to them in the form of just beautiful amount of knowledge. And if I take more than I give back, then that's not a fair trade, right? So with Epic React, I've really tried hard to make sure that I can give you something really quickly that you can apply in your day job. So anyway, it is different from Egghead, which is like very much that way. Like just like jump into it. Let me go through it. Okay, now what? what do I do next? Like, whereas with Epic React, it's like, okay, so here's the problem that we're trying to solve, go and solve it. And I give you a very clear step-by-step process to accomplish that with documentation on like, here are the things that you're going to need to go look at. And I expect you to, click on links and go Google things and everything like you're at a regular job. This is practice. This is like what we do for reals. And so, yeah, here's what we're actually trying to accomplish, the problem that you're trying to solve. I'll kind of walk you through it in code comments and stuff. And then when you're done, when your brain is in the right headspace to learn this stuff, then you come and watch me do it. And this is the key difference from the like anything else that I've seen.
Yeah.
Is it's just like, all right, like I'll briefly describe the problem and I'll go, and I'll go ahead and solve it. And now you know what I know, right? That's how that works. But that's not how that works, because I may be able to explain the problem to you, but if you haven't struggled even just a little bit with trying to solve that problem yourself, you won't understand the solution nearly as well. And so I say, okay, here's the problem. Now stop. And it's a completely different video to watch the solution. Right here, I want you to go to the repo. You're running it yourself. You've got tests running to verify you got things right. You have the app, and go in and solve this problem. And I don't care if you finish. That's not what's important. What's important is that you've struggled with the problem a little bit, so that when you see me do it, all the light bulbs start going off.
Yeah.
And this is all based on my experience in teaching these workshops in person for the last several years, where I've realized that the more that I get people to struggle, the more the light bulbs will start going off.
I think that struggle phase is so important. I know for me personally, I've had those moments where like I read through a whole book on a topic and then I'm like, cool, well, I must be like a Rails developer because I read that whole book and like it made sense, right? And then you go to sit down and actually do the work and it's like where do I start again? Like what was I know it was kind of like this or like whatever. And like because you didn't struggle like for that information, it was kind of like your brain didn't necessarily think it was valuable. It's like, oh yeah, like, well, that's in this book if we ever need it again.
Yeah. So that's actually that's the whole point is, that book turns into reference material, which is great. Like you can go back, but you don't actually learn it until you're struggling with it, and then you reference that. So like we're doing things backwards, where it's not entirely bad. Like you're exposing yourself to what's possible, right? So you run into a problem, you're like, oh yeah, I read like this problem can be solved. So you go reference it. But if we can, this is all part of speeding up that process of consuming this information and getting it right, is like we just tighten that loop where we say, okay, so here's the problem. Now I'm going to give you an opportunity to struggle with that problem. And then I'll give you the reference material, so that you can get an idea. And that is what locks it in place in your brain. It's like, okay, now I've struggled with that problem and I've filled that gap in my brain with that information.
I love that. I love that you've built the course around that, because I know that that's going to make it more meaningful for people. And I think that, it's one thing to just tell people how to do stuff, but like I really have admired your approach in kind of creating that friction, just enough friction so that people actually can learn something. And it's a delicate balance, but it sounds like this is kind of your masterwork in like at least trying to achieve that with people. When you're not like in the room with them.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if this is when you wanted to get into learning clubs, but I feel like this is a pretty good segue where like I'm not in the room, but maybe we can help pair people up for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something that's totally new for you. I don't think I've ever seen this from you before, but you're working to kind of help groups of people go through this material together, kind of like a book club. But instead of having to like, find 5 friends to go through this, like you're actually going to kind of like create an environment where people can find like-minded people to go through this material together. Is that kind of the understanding?
Yeah, precisely. So it's actually pretty simple. The idea is Discord is amazing. It's the next Twitter or something. I don't know. It's but I love this as a social network platform. But Discord allows you the ability to make like a mini server, where it's you and a group of 10 other people can be in a server. You have like video capability and everything. And so I'm leveraging that capability and my own Discord server to connect people who want to learn the same thing. Not necessarily KCD stuff, but often it will be naturally because it's because I'm doing it. But yeah, just they want to learn the same thing. And so they come together on the KCD Discord, and then they create their own little group where they learn it together. And we know this is based on research that has been done, and also my own anecdotal evidence, where I noticed that people will learn more when they're learning in a group, where like in my workshops, they're talking with each other, they're answering and asking each other questions. And I was looking at testing JavaScript and seeing these people, and some of them would be like kind of active on our community forums and stuff, but most of them are just kind of sitting in their basement, pulling up their screen and watching me go through this stuff. And they're learning tons. Like I've gotten so much like good feedback about this, but I'm just thinking we can do better. Like there's something better for people here. And so I thought maybe like you can be in that same environment, but actually be accountable to a couple people. And that accountability is what's key with the learning clubs.
That's interesting. I feel like as an industry, we're really transitioning into trying to figure out what virtual learning environments or virtual social environments look like, because that is something that you really can't, when you're doing the online or in-person thing, you naturally kind of like create these little like groups of the people you're surrounded with, right? Because someone groans and you're like, yeah, I don't understand it either. Like, can you believe this? Like, why is it so hard? And like you kind of group up into these relationships, and like, if you kind of get overwhelmed or bored, like you're not just going to like peace out, because like, the person next to you is kind of struggling just as much as you, and you're helping each other out. And I love this notion of kind of bringing that piece of the live in-person thing into a like virtual workspace, like kind of narrowing the focus a little bit so that you have like a handful of people working together and asking each other questions, instead of kind of that nervousness of raising your hand in like a group of like 100 people, or like asking a question that got asked like 2 months ago, and then someone just slapping you with a link and be like, hey, maybe you should read the full history of this general chat log before asking a question.
For real. Like I actually feel guilty sometimes when people ask me a question and I just give them a link to my blog. It's like, maybe you should have just read my entire blog. Yeah, absolutely. I think when you just ask a question in a Discord channel that has 4,000 people in it, then yeah, there are helpful people who will be there and try to help. But when there are 4,000 people in there, those helpful people can get kind of like tired, and especially when that helpful person is myself. I can relate to myself very well, and I get tired. And so by grouping people into these groups of 10, none of them has to be an expert on any of this. We have the club captain, and that's just the person who put it together, and they just make sure the meetings happen. The meetings don't even have to happen. Like you can just do all asynchronously. But the important thing is that you're in a smaller group, and you get to know each other. And if they're like, you bounce off, the like quote unquote easy questions off of each other, and you struggle through it together. And then if there's anything that is just beyond any of your pay grade, then you can, upgrade to the bigger community, and then like the bigger community can help you out. And I also am doing these office hours where every Monday and Thursday I'm just available to anybody for an hour.
Nice.
And so like you just come join a Zoom chat. They're all recorded, streamed on YouTube. And I just will answer any question. So like you're in a learning club and you bounce around some ideas, but you're stuck, then come bring it to me, screen share, show me the code that you're questioning. Like people are already doing this, and it's been awesome. So yeah, this learning club, I think that if you're going to take Epic React Dev, you're going to be blown away by how much you learn and how effective it is at helping you remember stuff. But if you do it with a learning club, then you will be blown away, and you will have 9 other friends who are also blown away with you. and maybe you'll start a company together or something. I don't know, but but like already we only have a couple learning clubs. Epic React isn't released yet, so they're doing other things, and already people are telling me that this has just been a game changer for their learning and retention. So I'm happy with this. This is a good thing.
That's awesome. Now, I want to, with as much material as you've covered in your career, I'm curious what the like parameters are for Epic React. Like, what does someone need to know coming into Epic React, and what can they expect to know once they leave if they've kind of gone through the material the way that you expect them to?
Great question. Yeah. So Epic React makes the assumption that you have some experience with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We don't do a whole lot with HTML and CSS. So if your experience there is not super great, then like you're not going to see anything that's going to blow your mind or I mean, that's going to be an inhibitor to your learning experience. It's the JavaScript part. You will want to come in with a little bit of experience with JavaScript. And I have a blog post that shows all of the features that I typically use when I'm using React. It's called JavaScript to Know for React. And so if you're comfortable with those features, then you're golden. If you're not, then I actually have a free workshop that I did a few years ago that was recorded. I did it at PayPal. And you can go through that workshop and kind of brush yourself up on some of the more recent features of JavaScript. So yeah, that's the parameters going in. You need zero experience with React, or you can have like lots of experience with React. Either one will learn things. But yeah, that's all that you need going in. Maybe some experience with Git, because we are working with Git a little bit in getting different branches and stuff. So just like a tiny little bit of experience. So you could use an installed app to manage that too. Sure. But yeah, then from there, on the outside, like the things that you will learn when you're all done, like how much time you got? So there's so much. So I'll just actually read through the different workshops. So we have these modules that are self-paced workshops all on their own, which when I give them in person or remotely, like I have been more recently, these are about 5 to 6 hour workshops each. So we have React fundamentals, React hooks, advanced React patterns, React performance, testing React apps, React suspense, and then build an epic React app, which is actually 4 workshops by itself. So that's 11 workshops of just like 0 to hero material. And actually, I'm planning on adding more stuff. So we'll probably get some animation stuff in there eventually. Cool. We'll probably get some accessibility stuff in there eventually. So like, this is not the end. This is, you haven't even seen my true form. Like, so like, there is an enormous wealth of material in here that I'm just so excited for people to see.
Nice. So I love that. You don't have to be an expert to like jump in. This isn't like an advanced thing, but you can kind of like go in and kind of like evaluate the individual workshops, and then kind of like jump in where you feel like you need to augment your learning or whatnot.
Yeah, and I think people will be surprised at how, like, if you're an experienced developer coming in, you'll probably think, oh, I'll skip a couple rungs of the ladder. I think you'll be surprised how many of those rungs actually would have been a good idea to step on there. And if you really are, this is actually, this is kind of funny. So with my kids, I tell them, hey, you need to go clean your room. They say, well, I cleaned it yesterday, or like it's almost clean. And I'll say, well, great. Then it won't take that long. So if you really think you are like just solid rock star React developer, then great. It won't take you that long to go through this stuff. But I do recommend that you go through it because interestingly, even with my beginner's guide to React, I'll have people who are like, I've been doing React for 4 years and I learned so much from that like beginner's stuff. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend people skip a whole lot. Just go through it. And if you already know it all, then you'll go through it really fast. But you'll probably learn some stuff that you didn't know before.
Yeah, I always find it really interesting how your environment can kind of restrict you from like a level of learning, right? And so one of the reasons that it's nice to actually like sit down with like an expert, and like I've noticed this in any times like I do trainings or like whatever, it's like I've sat in so many like apps or like code bases at this point that it's like you start to get like a sixth sense of like how something is going to break, or like how something is going to like be abused over the course of the next 6 months as people start to like pile on and whatnot. And a lot of that stuff kind of comes out in those lower level fundamental kind of concepts, right? So you're teaching this thing and you'll say like, I don't like to do it this way because X, Y, and Z. And so you end up learning, kind of a better practice like built from, like years of experience, as opposed to kind of what looks nicer, for a linter or something.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. For real. Like what looks nicer for a linter? Oh goodness. So yeah, like uh, often when we learn something new, I think that most people just want to ship stuff, and
Yep.
I don't blame them at all. In fact, I would suggest most of the time when you're learning something new, try to get as fast to shipping as
Yep.
possible, because you're like your emotional investment in this thing is just begging for you to ship something.
Yep.
And if you don't get there quickly enough, then you can't make it. You won't make it and you'll just give up. So yeah, when you're learning something new, brand new, you're just getting started, then get to shipping something as fast as possible. But the bad side of that, or the unfortunate end of that, is that to get something shipped as fast as possible, you have to skip over some stuff.
Yeah.
And so very often we'll skip over the fundamentals, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves appeasing a linter. And the rule about like, well, the order of the properties in your objects is just as important as, don't ignore or don't skip out on dependencies in your use effect array. As far as your editor is concerned, those are equal importance. And if you don't understand like the intricacies behind these things, or the fundamentals, then you don't know that it's a bad idea to ignore the one about effective dependencies, but you should probably just delete that object property order rule.
That's interesting. I don't think I'd really ever verbalized the way that linters have a way of putting those two things that have very different outcomes if you get them wrong onto the same category, right? Like it's just a line item on things that you're supposed to fix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And honestly, I hadn't thought about it that way either until just this conversation, but it's totally true. And so this is why I think a lot of people come to me after my beginner's guide and say, I learned so much, because they skipped over stuff. And I don't blame anybody. You should, like I said, you should skip over stuff. Just get something shipped. But if you really want to level up, you've got to go back and do those fundamentals. If you can't look at JSX and understand what that actually means in JavaScript, that you're making a function call and that you're passing an argument, then you won't be as effective at using it. I gave a talk at React Summit last year, and I gave an example in that talk about how I had this faucet, our kitchen faucet has the neck that you can pull out and direct the water wherever you want, and it wasn't going back, it wasn't retracting back into the neck, and I was like, what the heck? And we called a plumber to come take a look at it. And then the day that the plumber was coming, like a couple hours before they came, I was like, I wonder how this works. So I look under, and there's a weight that's on the bottom there that will pull it down, and it had just been twisted up in itself. And so that's why. And so I untwisted it and it went right back in. And I was so glad that the plumber didn't show up and like untwist that thing and say, here's your $50, bill or whatever for me untwisting this thing. So yeah, like, dive in a little bit, get an understanding of those fundamentals, how that works, and you'll be way more effective at using it and save yourself a lot of pain and stress.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like this is something that we hate doing for some reason as like, knowledge workers. I'm putting my like fingers up, for anyone who's listening to this, and we're doing this live today on YouTube. But like knowledge workers hate focusing on the fundamentals for some reason. But like if you look at like professional athletes or like professional artists or musicians, like so many times it's like they're just like repeatedly doing the basics so that they can perform at like a higher level when it's like game time, right? You go out and you hit like 100 golf balls every day, or like throw 100 like free throws. And that's something that I feel like a lot of times we're like we learn once like, oh, this is what a component looks like, and then you're like, okay, cool, like I'm done. Like what's the next more harder problem that's, gonna satisfy my intellectualism.
What's interesting about this is that it's not just the easy stuff that where there are fundamentals either, right? So there are more advanced stuff, and the way that I approach teaching all of this is I teach in isolation, and you learn it in isolation, and then you learn it again in a practical
Hmm.
real world setting. And so, like for example, React.memo or React.useMemo or React.useCallback or use layout effect. These aren't really what I would term the basics or beginner material.
Yeah.
And they're not in the beginner material, they're in the more advanced stuff. But they do have fundamental principles that you need to learn if you want to be able to use these things effectively. If you want to be the one who's just slapping on use callback and use effect and use memo and React.memo on everything, then sure, go for it. Your app will probably be slower, and you probably won't reap the benefits of those APIs anyway. And so, like, without having an understanding of those fundamentals, that while they are advanced topics, if you don't have an understanding of those fundamentals, then you're not going to be able to use it very effectively either. And so that's why I teach in like these workshops in isolated examples, like totally all that you care about, it's just one API. And so, yes, it's going to be a little contrived, but then I make up for that contrivedness by then later teaching you, okay, so now we're in a real application and we've got this actual use case for the thing that we learned in isolation. So let's see what it looks like in an actual use case.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm excited for people to kind of like, anytime there's new material out there, I'm excited for people to like almost like speed run it, right? Like, and like see all that kind of stuff. I like, it's so funny. Like I have never been into video games my entire life, right? But um just like during quarantine, I kind of got obsessed with Destiny, and I it's really interesting. Like, there are things that people like, once you have like kind of like gotten basic knowledge about a thing, you'll kind of like just like speed run it to like kind of like make sure that you know all like the ins and outs, and like make sure that like you still got that like kind of like under your belt. And I like the idea of like maybe like doing that with a course. Like it's like, okay, like I'm pretty
Mm.
sure like I got the basics, but like I'm sure that there's probably something in here for me anyway. Like I feel that way about Vim Tutor. It's like no matter how many times I do that, it's like I learn something new every time. There's some additional option that I'm like, oh sweet, well that was worth like going through it again.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is really anything instructional. It's very unlikely that you know everything about these things that you're going to learn. And so like and especially um, the fact that we all are different people with different experiences and have hit different problems. Maybe lots of shared space there, but there are definitely edge cases and things like that. It's kind of funny to think of somebody trying to speed run Epic React because it'll just take you so long. So like even if you just watch the videos and you watch them at 3x, I haven't added up all the time yet, but there are over 300 videos at an average of around like 5 minutes each. So like that's going to be a very, very long week or two. Even if you just watched it like 3x on all those videos. If you do it right and you're actually doing the exercises, Epic React is really, I don't like, it's basically a boot camp, is what it is. Like this is for many people doing it right. If you have no experience with React, you're just getting started, this is going to take you like 6 months to go through all of this stuff. And then you're going to use this for reference material later. Like
Awesome.
you do this right with a club, and you go through each thing very methodically, and you go through and building the app as well, and maybe building your own app to solidify things. This is this is enough curriculum to keep you busy for a really long time. So good luck speedy running it.
Now, I want to ask a question that may sound a little bit ridiculous for this show in particular, but I guess maybe even specifically like being a conversation between us. But, at this point, like, why React? Right? I know that you have been in previous technologies before and you kind of came to React, but it's really stuck. And I'm curious, for the person who is thinking about, Epic React, putting their money and time on Epic React versus like whatever the like Epic Vue or like Epic Ember or Epic Angular like equivalent is, like why React?
Yeah. So I actually just last week wrote a blog post on Epic React called "Why I Love React," and so yeah, this is top of mind for me. And like the quick answer is I like React because it's simple. Um, and like I need to mention this because like people get super mad at me when I say this. Like they're like, well, what about Svelte or something? Like Svelte is awesome. Like, don't get me wrong. I think it's great. Vue is cool. Like, this is great. I'm not comparing these things. But React is simple in by the definition that it's not complex. So like easy and simple are different words, totally different words. Easy means that like it's retrievable, like it's something that's near or similar to something you've already experienced. It's familiar. React is not familiar for most people. You jump into React and it's like, wow, we've got markup in my JavaScript. What I just threw up in my mouth. Like that was my experience. But after 5 minutes of using it, I was like, this is the next thing for me. I'd been using AngularJS for many years. I was a core contributor. I was like doing podcasts with AngularJS. I did 5 minutes. I worked with React for 5 minutes and I was like, yep, this is it. I can't believe like I found it. This is great. And so like some of the things that make it really simple for me or that I think make React objectively simple is that the state management solution. Like I know that people love hating on React State, how like, and actually today there's like a bunch of stuff going on Twitter about how like React State management and the mess that it's in. But I actually don't think that React State management is complex. The things that people complain about are everything else they try to do outside of React to manage their state. React by itself manages state really simply. You have some state, you have a mechanism for updating that state, and anytime you want to update it, you just call that function with the new state. And that's it. And you get a re-render. You don't think about time at all. Time doesn't enter it. You have this function that runs anytime that state updates. So like fundamentally, it's simple. Now, it's not easy. Like building applications is not easy. That's different. It is simple. I also like really fell in love with React using JSX over templates. When I was doing AngularJS, I actually built Angular Formly, this really popular forms library. I think it's probably still the most popular forms. It will probably always be the most popular forms library for AngularJS. But lots of it was actually trying to move as much as we possibly could into JavaScript because JavaScript is an actual programming language. Whereas with a template language, you have to build a bunch of features into this thing. And that thing is all like, like if you wanted to take the knowledge that you build learning this template language and transfer it anywhere, it's totally useless. That knowledge is gone. JSX, it does take a little bit of time to learn how JSX converts into React.createElement. But once you build that bridge in your mind between JSX and React.createElement, which you'll learn from Epic React or even the beginner's guide, which is free. So like if somebody wants to try that out, once you build that bridge, then it's all JavaScript from there. And so you can see JSX as JavaScript. And so the more you invest into JSX and into React, the more you're investing in yourself as a JavaScript engineer. And you can transfer that anywhere, even to the back end. So I loved that. And it was just such a shame for me to switch from AngularJS to React just because I knew there was so much that I was just saying goodbye to forever. So much that I'd invested. It was really frustrating. And I know a lot of people got really fed up with Angular 2 because it was such a big switch from Angular 1 to Angular 2. There was like, well, I invested all this stuff and now it's all gone. And I'm staying with the same framework. Like that was frustrating for a lot of people. It was frustrating for me. And then React hooks also, I think this was just an explosion. This wasn't, as I was first getting into React, like it didn't have hooks. But when hooks came out, it just increased turned the knob up to infinity on simplicity. Okay, maybe not infinity, but it just like really notched things up on simplicity, because now if I wanted to share some logic, I don't have to do some weird, like learn some weird pattern that's React specific, like render props or higher order components. Like I don't have to do that. I just say, I've got some logic and I want to use it over here. So I'm going to turn that into a function and I'm going to call it in both places. And that's how you do everything with JavaScript. Like any programming language, you're like, I've got some logic. I'll just put that into a function, pass some arguments, accept some stuff when it comes back. And that's how I share logic. So hooks, and then like just in general, switching from component lifecycles to use effect, where it's now I have some state in my React app, I have some state in the rest of the world. I need to get these two things in sync. That's use effect. That's all that use effect is. Synchronize the state of the world with the state of my app. And if they're out of sync, then I put a use effect, make that use effect, put those things in sync. And so, yeah, maybe it's not easy, but it's simple. And simple is what builds maintainable applications. Easy doesn't do that. Easy can't build maintainable applications, but simple can. And that is what gets me super excited about React. And then there's also like the fun stuff that I haven't taken advantage of, but like I can build things on native, I can build things in the terminal, I can build things with 3D, I can build like anything you can imagine, VR, all of this with just everything that I know about React. So React nailed it.
Yeah.
They just nailed it with the component model. And so that's why React for me.
I love that answer. It's funny because it's so hard. Man, it's so hard to describe that without doing it from experience, right? And so like that's like it's one of those things. It's like an unanswerable question, I think, sometimes for people who are like brand new to it. But like, you know, I know for us, it's like we came from different frameworks, and it was an immediate like a light bulb moment for us because we were like, yes, like I am so tired of, you know, everybody arguing about which API does or doesn't belong inside of a templating language, when like I have JavaScript, like I have it already, like I have a language to do all this stuff. Like, why do we need to reinvent it in this thing that's like just supposed to like spit that value out in front of in between H1 tags? Like, why did we do this to ourselves?
Yeah. And you know, like there's an aspect of that that's like, well, okay, so that's just a familiarity thing. You get yourself familiar with the template language, then that's fine. And I can go with that, but I really like the idea of just being able to be like, I'm just going to get sick good at JavaScript, and then I'll be able to do anything that I want to.
Yeah.
And I guess there's another thing that I really love about React now, that wasn't the case back then, when I first got into React, but it's the size of the community and the just like, so I love the community for the people that are in it. We have just a silly number of awesome people in the community. And unfortunately, because the size of it, it's just enormous. We also have lots of not awesome people in the community. We can't really help that. There's not like a vetting process to get in the community. But although there is a vetting process to get into the KCD Discord. So there's
you fixed the one problem that you had with React.
Yeah, but yeah, so because of the enormity of the size of the community, paired with the fact that the React team has decided to forego what frameworks typically try to solve, you know, by building everything in. Like we've got our HTTP library animations, like we're not going to do that. So that just creates this really big hole of missing things, which you might look at that and be like, well, that sounds like a bad thing. Like I want to just have all my answers. But the cool thing is that because there's that huge hole of problem that needs to be solved, rather than having a small team at Facebook solving all these problems for us and just assuming they know what's best, we instead have this enormous community of millions of developers solving all of these problems in different ways and coming up with different solutions. And there's no one end all be all, because the community is just so large that not everybody has the exact same problem. And so what that means is you come into this community now, and it is very unlikely you're going to face a problem somebody else hasn't already faced and solved. Whereas with either a smaller community and or a dedicated team that solves all of the problems, if they didn't solve it in the way that you like, you're probably not going to try and build it yourself, because this is the blessed solution. And so I'm not going to try and face what, you know, or beat the blessed solution here. Like instead, I'm just going to work around the like solution here. And so then you don't have as much innovation in that kind of a world. And so I'm glad that React decided to just go whole, like 100% dedicated to solving this problem really, really well, the component model. And then they left it to the enormous community to solve all the other ones. And just like so much innovation has taken place because of that. That's another thing that I love about React.
Yeah. Well, hey, I want to just kind of wrap up and just know, where do we send people? And like, if this sounds good to people, and I think that you've just been such a tremendous educator for React, and talking about all the things that really empower people to solve their own problems with React, which, as you mentioned, is simple but not easy. You know, it requires a lot of handholding as you kind of go into some of these concepts. If this sounds like the place that people want to learn React, how do they do that? Where do they go?
Well, I would welcome you to go to epicreact.dev. And it's pretty likely that when you're listening to this, you will actually be able to grab yourself a license. So that's exciting. I'll mention while we're here that the pricing is still not like solidified yet, but I'll mention 3 things about it. 1, it will be absolutely worth it. And 2, there will be an enormous sale when this is launched. So if you have the fortune of listening to this during the launch time, then go get it right now, because there will be a big sale. And then 3, we do have purchase power parity, which basically means if like the dollar is worth a different amount of money depending on where you are in the world. And so there will be a special link for you to opt into that. So that you can get like an enormous discount. We do this on testing JavaScript. Some people get like upwards of 80% discounts.
Wow.
On things. So like it is a non-trivial discount. So anyway, go to Epic React Dev. If it's not launched yet for you, then just scroll down to the bottom, give me your name and email, and I will let you know so you don't miss it. And then don't miss the KCD Discord as well. You can find that at kcd.im/discord. And we have an awesome community there. That's where you can find the different learning clubs that are actively accepting new members, and where you can learn to create your own learning club. And actually, you can learn more about that at kcd.im/clubs. And like really actually learn this stuff. That's what I want you to do. That's what the clubs are for. Yeah, I'm just so excited for this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop talking so it can happen.
Well, and I think one last thing I wanted to touch on is that I know that you and I both believe this, but like the best way to learn something is through teaching. And I know a lot of times people don't have an avenue or know how to start in that like teaching thing. And I think that clubs is a really interesting idea, because you can kind of slowly grow into that. You go through the material and you're like, okay, I know this. Like I could lead someone else through this, and then kind of grow from there. And you start like kind of like writing your blog posts, and then like before you know it, you're the next Kent C Dodds.
Yeah. I need somebody to be the next Kent C Dodds. Just kidding.
All this time you've been trying to duplicate yourself, so it's time for those Kent C Doddses to rise up.
Oh, but for real, like I really I know that it sounds like I don't know if platitude is the right word, but like the whole I want to make the world a better place thing, but I really do. And the more people who are helping me with that, the better. And so I want people to really get this stuff, and I want them to teach it to other people and to other people as they go along. So absolutely, I welcome anybody going through this material to to write blog posts about what you learned. That would be super awesome. I mean, give credit where it's due. Say I learned this from this course, and that's it. I don't need it to be like huge or anything, but it's just it's a really good opportunity for you to reinstate in your mind what you actually learn. And that's actually one thing that as you go through every single one of these exercises, I give you an opportunity to write down the things that you learned, because this is so much of sorry to keep this going, but like so much of what Epic React is all about is trying to solidify in your mind the things that you've learned. Otherwise, it's a waste for both of us. And so one of the things, like a lot of the structure behind Epic React and the workshops and the exercises and like forcing you to work through the problem first. A lot of this comes from the book Make It Stick and the research that was done in that book. And reiterating what you've learned in your own words is one of the things that really helps to make it stick. So you'll find a lot of different things in Epic React that are just 100% there to ensure that you don't forget this stuff when you go to apply it and when you reach for it in your real world app, which hopefully will make the world a better place. So that's it.
Awesome. Well, that's a great place to end, Kent. Thanks so much for being on. I hope that people check out what you're doing at epicreact.dev.
Yeah.
Yeah, Epic React.
We got epicreactdev.com too, just in case.
Nice. Just remember Epic React Dev and you'll get there by some means. Cool. And then where can people follow your blog and yourself on Twitter?
Yeah, so KentCDodds.com /blog is where my blog's at. I've got, I think, like 170 blog posts or something like that. So plenty of reading material. I'll probably write a book eventually. And Twitter is Kent C Dodds.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks again for being on the show, Kent. Can't wait to have you on again later when you do your next thing, or we can finally talk about testing JavaScript, which we've never done yet.
That would be a cool thing. People seem to like it, and so do I. So I'd love to talk about it.
Cool. Well, hey, have a good one. I hope that the launch is amazing for you and everyone who gets involved.
Thank you so much, Michael. Appreciate it.
Woo! We did it.
Yay! Good stuff. Thanks, man. That was awesome.
Yeah. Of course. This is fun. I always like I needed like one last Kent chat before kind of like calling it quits. We've had so many.
Yeah, it's been good. We've had a lot of chats.
I know. It's a good time with the pandemic and everything to be able to just like hang out with somebody, even if it's virtually, and just like hang out. It's good stuff. I'm always looking for more ways to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to when we have the Oasis, from Ready Player One, where we can like be in person, sort of like feel more real. That'll be cool.
Cool. Let's see. I think we got to everything we wanted, and I think we'll just I guess you just let me know when you want it to go live, and then everyone can kind of like find all those Easter eggs, all those exciting little nuggets on their own.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think so we decided, and the folks watching on YouTube are privy to this new information. So we were going to do an early bird on the 25th, but that has changed. Now we're just going to launch it and do everything on the 29th.
Cool.
So let's do this on the 1st, if that's cool.
Yeah. Launch on the 1st. That sounds awesome. Is that pretty like stable at this point? Like, should I just plan on
absolutely it? That'll happen.
Okay, cool. No problem.
We've got a countdown timer, so if it doesn't go by the 29th, then people will get really mad.
Somebody messed up.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm super excited for you. I think this is going to be amazing. I'm sure that it's got to feel good to be this close to it. And I know you have like a lot of plans and like want to like continue it on, but like getting through that first step is going to feel good, I'm sure.
Oh my gosh, you don't even know. Like I've been waiting so long for this to happen. And we're 20 days and like 15 hours away or something like that. Yeah. So
not that you're counting like the hours and minutes. But
I just can't wait. It's gonna be so great.
Sweet. Well, hey, I'll let you get on with your day. Thanks so much for taking the time to hang out with me, and we'll have to like hang out again. Maybe not creating content, just hanging out.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'm good with that. That'd be fun. All right.
Cool.
Thanks so much, Michael.
Yeah. Thanks.
We'll see ya.
See ya. Hey all, if you're still on, thanks for hanging out with us all the way to the end. I appreciate it. If you found this interesting, subscribe if you want to see more of these. This is kind of a new thing for us. I think, if you look at the page, there's not a lot on there. This is the third one of these live videos. If you are interested, just subscribe and do the bell thing. I'm not very good at this. And as we do more of these, you'll be able to know when they're happening. So anyway, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for hanging out with us. I look forward to seeing you around next time.